Okay, let's go ahead and keep going. Now that we have a button, we can kind of play with it. We have Scene Builder. I have it clicked. Now if I have this clicked, this is about the border pane. Notice the border pane is selected here. If I click Button, then it shows the button is selected. So let's make sure that the button is selected, that we can see it up here. You can also see Properties Button. We don't want to see Properties Border Pane, we want to see Properties Button. I'm going to change the text to do something. I can change the font. Let's see here. I'm going to change it to, say, 18. I'm going to change the color. I'm going to just change it to red. That's not exactly the red I want. There we go, all the way to red. There's all sorts of different things we can do, but that's pretty good for there. Let's create now that we've gotten the border layout, let's go to containers and go to, let's use a HBox. HBox is horizontal, and I'm going to put this at the top. I'm going to put some labels in there. So I'm going to go to the controls. I'm going to put a label down here or up there, and then I'll put another label right there. And then while I'm at it, I'll put another container I'll forget the container. I'm just going to put a text box down here. The reason I might want to use a container inside a container is to have more control. With the border pane, we only have, let me just try and add one of these. We only have the left, center, right, bottom, and top. Well, if I put another container in there, then I can add more things. So let's have a text box, or a text field, should I say? There we go, text field. I'm going to put this at the bottom. There we go. I think that's pretty good. In fact, I am going to say this is label 1, and I'm going to see if I can just drag it. Let's drag it to the left, and then this is going to be, I'm going to change this to label 2. There we go. So at this point, I've got lots of things. I've got a text field, I've got a button, I've got a label here, I've got a label there, I've got myself a different container inside a container. Lots of little things that was really easy for me to drag and drop. No problem. Well, it doesn't do anything without the Java code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save file, I'm going to save as, and I'm going to have example1, so I'm going to call this FXML Example2. All right. In order for this to do something, the most important thing is I actually have to make it do something. So click on the button, and I have to tell Java and FXML file how to connect together. So I'm going to go down to code. There we go. I'm going to give this an actual ID. So I'm just going to call this button my button, and I'm going to give it an onAction method. So the method I'm going to call, let's call it do something. There we go. And so I'm going to have to remember my button, that's the name of the button, and the name of this action, onAction. When I click here, it'll call the do something method. Here, for the text field, I'm going to call it my text field. I'm going to save this. It's nicely saved. Everything's great. And I'm going to go back to JGrasp. I'm going to call this, I had this example1, but I'm going to call this example2. So now I'm going to do a save as and put it in the same place I always do. FXML example2. All right. The thing I need to most worry about is, of course, always have the name of the FXML file correct. So I named it 2. I'm going to call it 2. Other than that, if I just compile this, I need to, all right, compiled nicely, great, run it. Oh dear, we have a big, big problem. Error resolving onAction. Do something. What in the world does that mean? Oh, wait a minute. Back here, button, do something. Aha, I told it I had to do something. So Error resolving on action equals do something. Very nice. Either the event handler is not in the namespace or there is an error in the script. Well, there's an error in the script, all right. I have not yet actually put it here. So, that's pretty cool. What do we have to do? Okay, now that we are actually, doing something, we actually have to do something. So first let's import those particular fields. The first one is we have to tell Java that we have some fields that are coming in from FXML. And the first one is a button. Oops. And what's the name of the button? Oh, it's right here. Look at this. The button, the name, the FX ID is called my button. Okay, so I'll just call it my button, and we're good to go. The other one we have is FXML, and if we go over here, back if we called it a text field called my text field. So we'll go in here, text field, my text field. So these are the controls that we actually gave IDs. So if you didn't give something an ID, like these labels, we didn't give it an ID, so we can't do anything with it. Let's go ahead and say, let's change label 2 to my label. All right, so then we'll be able to access that and change it in our Java program. There. The only thing that we've got missing so far is we have the do something on action method. So this one is a lot of code. It's FXML, and it's protected, and it's void, and you have to name it whatever you called it there. You pass in an action event, and just call it the event. There we go. At this point, I'm going to call this to do add functionality later. All right, so I'm going to compile it. Notice it'll compile fine, no matter what. As long as the Java's okay, Java code's good, it'll compile. But once it connects to the FXML, that's where we start having problems with runtime errors. So I run it. Yay! Look at that. Do something. Does absolutely nothing. I can type stuff in. Yay! Happy day. Now what I want to do is, as silly as this sounds, I want to take this input, and when I press do something, I want to change label 2. Now, I never gave label 1 an ID back in Scene Builder, so I can't manipulate label 1. If I wanted to, I would just go back here, click on label 1, and give it an ID. Remember, we have on the right side, we have properties, layout, and code. Code, if properties is open, code's going to be way down here. So remember that. All right, I'm not going to bother with label 1, so I'm going to close this and go back to JGrasp. All right, so how about we get string, that got messed up. There we go. String, I'm going to say input equals my text field dot get text. Now the book I wrote for this module has a number of common getters and setter methods to actually access the text fields and check radio buttons and labels and that kind of thing that we might actually have to use. But for now, we have the text field, and to get the text, we just say, well, my text field dot get text. Cool. Well, how do I print this out? We don't have system out print line. It's not really popping up. It'll pop up here. So let's go ahead and first do that. So system out print line input. Now, if I made an executable jar and sent this to my mother, she wouldn't see anything that I do with system out print line. So after I make sure this works, I'm going to set my label to be whatever is in the text field. So I would compile that. Yay, run that. Okay, so I'm going to say, please work. Press do something. Hey, it showed up down here. Pretty cool, huh? So let's go through exactly what happened again. I'll move that there. When the button do something got pressed, then it calls do something. Now, why does it call do something? Because back here, I press do something, and scene builder, I have this do something on action. So it's tying this with the do something method that I created right here. All right, at FXML, this tells Java this is going to be overwritten by or used by FXML later on when I load it, which is when I do it right here with the dot load. And then when the button, that button that I have, when this do something is pressed, it's going to call this. And so I'm going to get the input from the string right here. In fact, I can do is change it now. Changed. Look, changed down there. System out print line. Oh, cool. Now the next thing that would be kind of neat is my label.setText. Well, I want to set the text from my input of the text field to the label here. So let's close this. We'll compile that, and we'll run it. All right. So if I do something, there's nothing in there. It's going to be an empty string. Label2. Ah! It did not like me at all. It said I had a null pointer. Oh, that's so messy. How about I give it an A? It still hates me. Oh dear, what happened? So we have a null pointer exception. There's a whole bunch of stuff that it's telling us about. Exception thread, we have all this stuff. Null pointer exception? What's null? Well, let's figure this out. What's null? If I comment this out, I compile it, yes, end it, and compile, that works fine. All right, I'll push H, and that worked. So it's not my text field. Let's go ahead and print out what my label is. Let's see what the value of my label is, in fact. See if it's the null problem or not. Put an H in there, well, I guess a D. Oh, look at that. My label is null. Why is that? I see my label here. What's going on? Now, here's the thing. I changed FXML on Example2, but do you know what I did not do? I didn't save it. So let's save it. Ta-da! Changes. Saved. So I'll run this again. All right. Boom. I have now printed out label. All right, it's not null anymore. Life's good. So I'll comment that out, and we're going to see what happens. Compile that. Yes, and the other one. Run. Okay, run, go, go, go. Please work. Okay, does it work? Does it work? Yay, it worked. All right. So one of the biggest mistakes is not saving in Scene Builder. You've done things, but it doesn't actually work. All right, last thing we want to do is let's go ahead and have a number in here, say 5. I'm going to multiply it times 5. All right, so we'll close that down. I'm going to change this text to multiply by 5. And so that's good. So now I'll save it again. And now that's only changed the text. Now we actually have to change the code. So in order, we're getting the input from the text field. Let's change it to an integer. So int input equals integer.parseInt input. This is important, integer.parseInt. I had another video about wrappers before, but we need to convert this string into an integer. And now that we've got that, I'll call this int input, and we're going to multiply it times 5. All right. No, we didn't do that. Incompatible, because int cannot be converted to string. Well, this isn't happy. What's wrong? Well, what this is it is an integer, right? So let's take this out. I'm going to say int input equals int input times 5. All right, and then we'll see if this works. Int input. I'll compile that. And, oh, it still doesn't like me. It's not compatible. That can only be a string. Oh. Well, the easiest thing that I know of to convert an integer to a string, there's multiple ways, but the easiest way is concatenate any string with the empty string, and that will convert this to a string. Ta-da! All right, let's go ahead and look at that. I'm going to put in a 4. 4 times 5 is 20. Yay! The crowd goes wild. All right, that's an introduction into Scene Builder. As just a review, Scene Builder is just the GUI part. Any functionality you have, like for example, you want the button to actually do something, you have to do the on action. There's lots and lots of advanced things you can do here. You can do all sorts of crazy stuff with this, but it's really easy to do in comparison to handwritten code. So that's why we do it. All right. So that's pretty much it. Always remember, the biggest thing is to name this exactly the same thing. They have to both be in the same directory as each other, the .java file and the .fxml file. If they're in two different directories, you have big time problems, and you have to make sure for every ID that you want to actually interact with, you have to import it like this, and you absolutely have to, for every method, like what we have do something, you have to have the equivalent method here. Enjoy.